between University of Houston, so these were my supervisors there. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank Qatar Foundation because I'm a JISRA awardee, and also this project was made possible by the MPRP grant. So with NORTEST, we are building a future where outbreaks are stopped before they even start. Thank you very much. Do you have any question?
I will allow only one question due to time restriction. One question.
Hello. First of all, amazing presentation. Congratulations. I am an incoming PhD researcher in the UK, and this will be very useful, as you said, in the UK. Are you looking to collaborate with any industrial or academic institutions in the UK or the US? Would that be a possibility in the future for you?
This is actually the first Qatari made lateral flow immunoassay, so we want to make sure we register it here under the Ministry of Public Health. And then we search for some collaborators, the people in China, the Wonderful company, which is the largest company for diagnostics in China. They actually were talking to Dr. Ghayath because they wanted to take this test to their to their line as well.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Any other question?
We don't have time, unfortunately, but as I have mentioned, you can really interact with our talents. We have spots upstairs. As we conclude our session, I would like to thank you all for joining us for this session and continue supporting our talents to find their way from the lab to the market. Thanks again, and a big round of applause for our excellent speakers. Group photo.
Test, 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 test. We need to start.
ممكن تجيب one extra
هما 5.
اوكي عندك 4 بس ممكن تسحبون الكرسي
Okay,
هذا
okay.
We need one more chair. Yeah.
This phone is
Yeah.
working.
I just. 1, 2. Do you want to sit there or the other side?
I'm flexible. I'll follow
I'm
you.
gonna. We're just waiting for one more. Can you hold that?
Thank you. Okay. This. This. This.
Okay.
This. I will bring my phone.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. We're very excited to have you here for this session on Qatar's digital innovation future. I've got a really gorgeous, esteemed panel with me here, which I'm about to introduce. Today, it's going to be quite spicy. We'd love a lot of audience interaction, so I'll get your engagement and involve that in a minute. First, what I want to do, though, is just set the scene a little bit with innovation. What are we actually talking about here? And I'd love to hear from the audience is how would you define innovation? Any brave volunteers? A sense? How one might define innovation? Yes, there's a hand there at the back. Could somebody assist with a mic? Where is the in the back? Yeah, go ahead.
Something new that can answer challenges.
Super. Something new that can answer challenges. So panel, we've got to discuss here now something new that can answer challenges, and I will add an additional flavor or definition to set the scene for us all while I'm keeping some suspense about who are the panelists I have with me. So there's an esteemed chemist, in fact, a scientist, who goes by the name of Arthur Koestler. And he defined creativity or innovation not as the act of creating something new from nothing, but the act of rearranging the existing parts, reshuffling, reordering. And the more familiar the parts, the more innovative and more surprising the new whole. So with these different parts that I have here coming from academic, private sector, government, entrepreneurial backgrounds, we'll see if today we can weave a conversation which shows something new by working with existing parts. So what I'd love to do now is to introduce our panelists. I'm going to share a little flavor about who they are and what they do, and then I'm going to invite them to add an additional quality or layer on top of that. So I have a wonderful range here. I've got Mr. Bassam here, who's from Malumatia, one of the leading IT companies in Qatar, and that has grown and scaled from back in 2009, 30 people to now 1,200, so that's a scaling success story. I've got Francesco, who is coming from Ooredoo, which is a Qatari juggernaut, which I imagine those Qatari persons here will be familiar of. Lots to say on the private sector and governmental collaboration aspect. I've got Dr. Francis here, who is from Singapore, but is part of the Senior Council of the Qatar Research and Development Innovation Council. And I have Amna, who's head of emerging technologies from MCIT, which is Qatar's, for our foreign guests here, Ministry of Technology of the government. And finally, Khalid on the end of our lovely esteemed panelist, who is an entrepreneur and has multiple, I think, entrepreneurial success stories under his belt, starting with Ibtikar and now moving on to Elsa Labs, and also a story of scaling from moving up from, in the last few years, from being the first company that was incubated in the Digital Incubation Center now to having 30 employees and growing. So they have stories, ladies and gentlemen. Without further ado, I'll invite them to now deveil a little bit who they are before we dive into these gritty thematic mechanics on innovation. So we're going to shuffle the order around a little bit. I'm going to start actually with this end of the table. And Khalid, if you would like to just share a quality that you bring into your entrepreneurial spirit and into the way that you do innovation on top of your role. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy, and welcome everyone. Thank you for being here today. I think being inspired by the advancements of technology and its impact is something that really makes my eyes spark and my energy kind of just spike and want to do things. And I love to bring that to my teams, whether at Ipticar, Else Labs, and how we do things.
Thank you, Khalid. Amna?
First of all, thank you all for having me here today. So my name is Amna, and it basically means safe. So what I would like to imagine is that at MCIT we're providing a safe environment for people to innovate and to grow in a very space environment.
Okay, we're going to shuffle the order because they build on each other. Francesco.
Lucy, thanks a lot for your introduction. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, QRDI, for inviting me and us with this distinguished panelist. My name is Francesco Paolo. I'm in charge of policy and advocacy for Oridu. This is the same position I've been covering for 4 years with the CRA, meaning in the public sector. And this is what I generally are, meaning someone who builds bridges, building bridges in between public and private. When I was working for the CRA, I was trying to match the demands of the market with an efficient regulation. Now I'm doing the other way around. I'm working, supporting, collaborating with public institutions in order to have some regulation that foster innovation.
Thank you.
Okay, my name is Francis, and I want Francesco to go first because we share the same name, except that mine is simpler. So I sometimes introduce myself as a jack of all trades, right? Because I've been a researcher, I've been running a research institute, I've been a government policy maker, I've run a startup company, and now I'm a professor as well at the university, right? So I'm a jack of all trades. You can complete the other part of the of the proverb. Okay, so I think what I've been involved in innovation most of my career, and I think perhaps what I can bring is the understanding of different parts of this innovation ecosystem, whether as an entrepreneur or as a professor, as a policy maker, and so on, right? And hopefully that helps to bring the different parts together.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bassam. Again, you saw the name. Personally, and I'm moved by impact, right? I mean, we sit at the tail end of innovation, if that makes sense, which basically bringing these solutions to clients, deploying it to our end customers at scale. And that generally allows us an opportunity to really see the impact of these solutions in people's lives, and that's what motivates us, that's what moves us, and privileged to be as part of this panel today.
Thank you, Bassam. Thank you, panelists. So I wanted to give you a little bit of a flavor of who you're speaking to before we dive into the mechanics of innovation. But I'm going to add one additional layer for some further audience engagement, is that when you hear something that you really resonate with or you agree with, I want you to see if you can make some little clicks with your hands. Yeah, do a little practice for me. Can I hear that? Yeah, that's a sense. Okay, fantastic. Okay, and if you're really feeling moved or really in concordance with the panelists, feel free also to encourage to make a bit more noise, to make some arriba, woohoo! I encourage that as well, so we can sense the vibrations of innovation rippling through the crowd as well. So I'll layer that in as we move forward. And panelists, it's your challenge to see how much we can get them to make some noise. So leaning in a little bit to, we had, for example, Will Smith on the main stage yesterday, who said, you know, he can feel that palpable excitement and that somehow here the future is being built. So my first questions for you panelists is, in all that is going on, and there's really a lot going on in the Qatari innovation ecosystem, what is something that is your perhaps highest excitement, that you are most excited about, an ingredient, a project, some shift or change that's happening? Just have a little think about that, and I'm going to invite whoever's feeling impassioned first to express first, and I'll just rove around our panelists. So I'm going to see. And Khalid, would you like to take us up?
Yeah, like I've been in the ecosystem for more than a decade now. And again, starting with the DIC as the first incubator in the country. And the fact that I always speak proudly about Ibtikar as a byproduct. It's something that it was an outcome of the ecosystem. But more importantly today, on a platform like Web Summit, and see how the different players, seeing the compounding improvement, the compounding learning over all the past years, more than a decade of learnings and trying and initiating basically programs and building on top of other initiatives, seeing it manifesting in all of this that we see today, and how we have been facilitating that the ease of entering the Qatari market and building a company from the training, capacity building to financing all the way to growing and scaling is something tangible that I'm telling you out of personal experience that I'm so proud today to see on the ground actually happening before our eyes.
Amazing, thank you. Story of evolution there. Who would like to add to that?
Well, I would second what Khalid said. I've been involved with entrepreneurship many years, and I like doing that because you can sense the sort of high energy, right? Entrepreneurs are different, you know. They don't sort of, you know, give boring pitches and so on, right? They are full of passion, full of commitment, and I think what you see today is exactly that. So I think this augurs well for Qatar, that you need events like this to bring everybody together, to bring the kind of energy into really a climax for things to happen. And I think this is really a positive development.
It's working? Yeah, it's working. Okay. The mic's playing tricks with us, so we'll have to roll with it. So I wanted to encourage my other panelists, if you've got something to add here, let's make it spicy, so let's add some. Is there anything new or different? So we've had the evolution of the ecosystem, we've had from Khalid, we've had from Francis, we've had this collaboration, key events, bringing energy synergies to happen. What else? Are there any other ingredients of excitement that you have from your personal lanes in government or in the private sector?
Well, you see that we have a lot of investment recently in the infrastructure and making it there for AI implementation. We have a lot of investment in data centers, in GPUs. We also have investment in actually developing use cases for people to grow in this field. We have incubators, and I'm very proud to say that we have a lot of startups here today showcasing their projects and getting investments from different entities. And to top that off, we also have we have sandboxes that we're using for people to experiment. So whether you're a government, whether you're a student, or it doesn't really limit you. You can always experience, experiment, learn from people here. I mean, the crowd this year is amazing. Like, we're having people from all around the world changing experiences and learning. So it's a really good opportunity for a lot of startups to grow here.
Fantastic. Thank you, Amna. And so that, leaving on a note of experimentation, so I'm actually a secret chemist, so anything to do with experimentation or laboratory-style experiments really gets me excited for sure. So before I move on to the sort of playing the contrarian to all of this excitement and thinking what are the risks involved, does anyone have anything additional to add before we pivot lanes? No? Okay. Yeah, you do? No. Yes?
Yes. Well, I obviously share what my co-panelists said. What we can feel here is the energy of a country that is growing and it has lots of fuel, lots of resources, lots of personal resources especially. We have to be able to channel these resources in the right way, because what is the risk is that without focus, we disperse our energies in too many different rivers. And this is one of the risks I see. So we need, and I would like to see it, especially from our government, a more a prioritization of the efforts. Where we're going? What are the actual needs? When I read the policy documents that are written for Qatar, I read lots of ambition. But this ambition, I think, we have also to put it in action. And one of the ways of putting it in action is defining, assessing which are the areas we would like to address. If the main objective is to diversify the economy through digital transformation, through technological innovation, which is incredibly great, we have to try and understand what are the areas in which we have to focus. And I think we should start by identifying which are the competitive advantages that Qatar has and build on these in order to start creating some quick wins. These quick wins will help moving to the next step.
Thank you. Okay, quick moves, moving to the next step. So Francisco's there, jumped on the piece of being a little bit provocateur. We've got this energy, this excitement, this collaboration, this experimentation, and now flipping this switch and saying, well, actually, what are the risks to all of this energy getting wasted? And here, one of the things that Francesco's just expressed is, does this investment and resource need to be more clearly focused? Now, I'm just going to give a few more flavor for the audience of what in the Qatari ecosystem, what are some of the ingredients that we're working with? Now, in any innovation ecosystem, we have things like infrastructure, which sets the tone of what people can build on. We've got the talent pipeline, who's going to be our innovators? We've got things like, is there access to capital? And what are the policies and legislations like? Do they enable or do they hinder innovation? So in some of these areas, we've got fantastic opportunities or ground built in Qatar, such as, I've had multiple experts say this word for world-class infrastructure. So that's been a huge momentous task that Qatar has been built and continue to build on. And then there are perhaps some areas or ingredients that could be improved or involved. So building on what Francesco has said, do any of my other panelists have something to say about what is a risk to the innovation journey? Where might we need to pay attention? That's number one. And then what we'll move into, just signaling moving forward, is then looking at what are some of the, building on Francesco's point, what are some of the niches that we might look at developing or investing in further, as opposed to having a more generic digital agenda 2030 across all areas. So before we get to that discussion of which niches or which sectors might be our competitive advantages in the country, does anyone have any other perspectives on what are the risks at play? Bassem, go ahead.
Go, Bassem.
I want to build on what you said. I think human capital, of course, it's at the core of innovation, right? And that's something that I think there's significant investment that's going into it. But it's something that needs a long-term structured approach, right? It's not enough for us to actually import expertise. We have to develop a systematic way to upskill, reskill, and develop really the human capital internally. I think that's something we need to continue to be laser focused on it.
Actually, my point is to build on what Mr. Bassam just mentioned. So with all the technologies that we're having at the moment, with AI rushing us and other technologies like quantum computing and many other, we're going to have a very wide digital skills gap. And this needs to be filled with upskilling, reskilling programs that will equip people with the talents that they can have to excel in this environment and ecosystem.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more. I think in most things, the challenge is the human capital, and these days, things happen so quickly that I think, as Amna said, there's the skills gap. So it's important. If I may take a leaf from Singapore's experience. Now, Singapore, like Qatar, is a small country. Population was slightly bigger, but geographically we're really tiny. And like Qatar, Singapore also wants to do a lot of things, right? So very ambitious about things. And you can't do if you insist that the people who are going to do these things are true blue, born and raised in Singapore, right? It's not possible. So I think you have to look at a policy of enhancing, growing your human capital in various ways. Qatar is a great place to live. In the region, there's lots of talent. I mean, similarly in Singapore, we've got lots of talent in the region. And you can make Singapore a really wonderful place to live, to attract such talent. So Qatar should do the same. But of course, that's just one way. Beyond that, you've got to establish education in the universities, even in the high school, right? Prepare for the flow of talent to come through, to take on these big challenges.
Super, thank you.
Lucy, to add on the point of the risks, actually, to me, and I saw it as a theme in my conversations throughout the day, yesterday and today since the start of the summit, is misalignment. With big excitement, with all of these, and literally it's like a puzzle pieces. You just listed pieces of the puzzle that they need to come together. And just like a puzzle, if things are misaligned, you'd say, what's going on? And it will create friction and frustration. So it's really important, and I see this excitement. A lot of people want to come. Qatar is the place to be. Alhamdulillah, we have an awesome infrastructure. You feel it in the smoothness of the crowd when you go to exhibitions across the board. And trust me, in the past decade, I've been everywhere, east and west. It's fascinating, and you can see the energy. But oh, guys, let's calm down. Everybody's jumping into conversations. Okay, let me get to know you. Get to know me. Let's ensure that there is alignment, because sometimes there is no issue with you personally. Bassam's an amazing person. Francois, all of us, Amna here, we're awesome people, but sometimes what I need, what I want, what I should do, might not align with anyone else, which is fine. So that misalignment, I think, is one of, at least I saw it as a theme, is a risk that we should be aware of and cognizant of. And I think platforms like this, venues like this, discussions like this help us shed the light on these risks and hopefully help us in efficiently navigating them.
Collaborate instead of compete.
Yeah, so absolutely, absolutely. Seeking understanding and building on that and ensuring that alignment is there so that we are efficient in how we are really building on top of all of the list above. Infrastructure, talent, and processes, technology, etc.
Okay, if I may pop in, since I was saying before that I love to build bridges, I would like to build a bridge from between what was said, the lack of digital skills, and the other side, what was saying my colleague Khalid regarding the misalignment. So, generally speaking, I absolutely agree on the fact that we have an issue of skills gap. And we have an issue of these skill gaps that should be resolved in the short term, medium term, and long term with different tools. And probably recurring to external resources is a quick fix. It enables us to solve it for the short term, but it's not sustainable in the long term. So we have to build these skills and these competencies. Where does it come, the alignment? This morning, we were at the MCIT workshop on empowering Qatar's workforce for a digital future, and actually they presented a very, very interesting plan, DSF skills. This is incredibly interesting. It helps mapping the skills that will be needed in the next future. Now, what I feel is missing is a link. To which extent this was discussed with, for instance, the academia, with universities, how and why this cannot be part of a program that we may have in universities in order to solve the problem in the long run. This is an alignment we need to have, which is a form of collaboration in between public institution and private institution we absolutely need.
Thank you. Okay, so we've had a blend there. We've got this talent piece, then what Amna mentioned or built on top of that in terms of the digital skills gap and how that's closed it, and then building on top of that picture, Francesco, with we need further public-private sector collaboration in order to fill this gap, build that bridge between these different spaces. what I'd like to explore now, there's some untapped areas in terms of I'm thinking, okay, well, there's a talent gap. Well, how do we solve that? What's the next step? And I'm also wondering or thinking in these different areas of potential technology, which, in terms of focus, coming back to a point that was mentioned earlier, which technologies are we going to focus on? Which technologies are we going to focus on? Which niches will, and therefore, in what ways will we upskill that talent and focus and align the ecosystem? And so I'd be curious to hear momentarily from Amna, from an MCIT perspective, on of all these different emergent technologies, and of course AI is trailblazing, taking the lead on many of these, is which do you see as the emerging technologies that the government is looking to invest in or that are going to be prominent in Qatar's upcoming future?
So to answer your question, yes, AI, it's the emerging technology at the moment that everyone is talking about. And you can see it through the initiatives that MCIT are having in terms of investing in the infrastructure, as well as the partnership that was announced on Sunday with the Scale AI to develop 50 use cases before 2029. So all of these initiatives and all of these investments are toward having a better infrastructure. On top of that, part of the partnership that we're going to have with the Scale AI is actually what we mentioned before, skilling and upskilling and reskilling the employees, students, also kids as part of Studio 5 programs. So we have a lot of programs, whether it's for students in school, whether it's for college students, and many more. So a lot of these lies the ground for us to grow in AI and to build use cases in a very safe environment. So on top of that, we also have all the regulations that we're doing. We have a regulatory framework that make it safe to innovate, while, as I mentioned before, it makes it transparent. We make sure that there is ethical use and many more.
Super, thank you. Okay, so we're building different layers of the puzzle here, and Amna, thank you. You're sharing this upskilling education, which is happening as all layers of the education system. As a founder who came from EdTech, I know how that important that is, and also building on Francesco's piece, if we need to do long-term thinking, then working with building on top of the already fantastic educational systems to inbuild additional digital upskilling. That sounds like a really solid initiative. So provoking one layer further, there's an aspect of innovation that I don't think we've yet addressed before I come back to some of the other points, which is in order to drive innovation forward, we do need to have the mindset and the appetite for building new things and for believing, having the audacity that we can and being able to see and imagine the future. And so there's a lovely quote by Einstein who says that imagination is everything. It's a preview of life's coming attractions. And so just questioning here, do we think we have the mindset, that mentality to be able to see, design, innovate, create the future in Qatar? And are there any other aspects you have to explore, feature of what is strong in the mindset of Qataris and how do we keep driving that forward? And I feel like, from my past discussions, that maybe Francesca has something to say around the national pride element, and perhaps Bassam also about the integration with international talent. So perhaps I'm going to let one of you...
I'm actually going to say something different than what you said. So to me, I think if we need to embrace failure as a path to learning, I mean, that's absolutely necessary, right? And I think I've been part of a lot of the I would say part of a lot of the digital transformation, at least in Qatar over the past decade and a half. And that's one thing that I will call out. We need to get comfortable with failure. We need to get comfortable with experimentation. We need to get comfortable with doing things differently so that can chart the path for us. I think fear is the biggest enemy of innovation.
Thank you, Bassam. Okay, so I love that hearing coming from Amna, coming from MCIT, from the government agencies expressing desire to create this safe space and the sandbox, and Bassam on the private sector side is we need to adopt this greater welcoming of fear into the embrace of innovation in order to have that multiply further. Thank you. Good.
Okay, I first of all can share the experience of Ooredoo. We've been a very, very innovative company. We've been driving the our networks to the next level, to be honest. And this has been a journey which took quite a long time, honestly speaking. We've been working until 2014, till now, and we can proudly say that our network is recognized, as you said as well, as one of the pride of the country.
And maybe to add some context in there for the audience. So if I understand correctly, Ooredoo was the first company worldwide to implement 5G networks in any country in the world. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So
And that's only one of the achievements we had. Arthur de Little quoted our country as having the fastest fixed network, UCLA the fastest mobile network in 2022. So we're achieving great standards, and this thanks to a certain commitment to innovation, a commitment to innovation which is not limited to the objectives or to the goals we mentioned, but it's going even further. We are projecting our network to go even beyond the 5G. And the reasons for that to be is because we have a natural pride. We feel ourselves as being the champion, the national champion of Qatar. And this is pushing our boundaries in order to improve and improve and improve. Obviously, we cannot make this or share this pride with other institutions, because this is something that you have to build inside the organization. What I would say from a cultural point of view, apart from embracing completely what Bassam was saying in terms of nurturing a culture of failure, because as Will Smith said yesterday, we reach the top by failing, not by achieving. That's an important lesson we have. But I think that we have to gather, and I would emphasize it even more, a long-term approach. We have to abandon the short-term approach in order to go to a more long-term approach, thinking one step ahead. So if I may add on top of what a colleague from MCIT was saying, I'm hearing speaking quite a lot of AI here, but we have to be ready to think what's next after AI. I've been hearing very little regarding quantum technologies, but I think that this is the future. We know that technological cycles are shortening, so also this technological cycle of AI probably will end in 2, 3, 5 years. We have to be ready for the next shift. So we have to gain this long-term mentality.
Thank you. So building then on just on the long-term mentality to kind of close the loop. I mean, we're here hosted by QRDI, and I'd love to get the perspective from research, from Francis. In that research, maybe the game has totally changed on research, providing a platform and a foundation for building innovations on top of that, in the sense that we can have our very own AI researchers. Do we need the humans anymore? And such things. That's really a game changer. But to bring then, building on, well, how do we really look ahead to the future? Research is one of the ways that we foresee before we start actually building and creating. And I'd love to hear from Francis just a few words on the research perspective.
Perhaps before I do that, maybe I'll just add a comment on this, this topic about fear of failure. I think everybody has heard that before, right? You must embrace a culture of innovation, which means you must be tolerant of failures and all that. I mean, you hear that all the time. But actually, it is very difficult to do. Right. I mean, if you have tried to change your culture, it's probably one of those very difficult things to do. So I think it's important to say that we want that, but we have got to put in place things that show that we mean it. And by that, for example, I mean, it has to start from the top. The leadership of the country, the leadership of the enterprises. To actually demonstrate that it's not just lip service, because it's sexy, right? To say, it's fear of failure is great, right? And I think that's very difficult. So what little things that QRDA has done in the last couple of years is to try and get, for example, enterprises, even government agencies, to try and do things which are innovative, and therefore, by definition, there's a chance that it may not work, right? but we've got to start with making it quite painless to do so. And then, hopefully, get some successes, and then that success is going to then feed back into the system to make people realize that actually, if you want to get some successes, you need to take some risks, right? And hopefully that kind of mindset would then grow, right? So, but it's still a long-term process. Okay. So back to the research question, right? I think you have to think about innovation and research as a sort of spectrum, not necessarily sequential all the time, but nevertheless as a spectrum. So you've got to invest in research as well. You don't just say, I don't want to do the costly research, I just want to do the quick wins in innovation, right? You've got to, for long-term planning, you've got to do that. And I think QRDI as an organization is doing that. QRDI through, in the past, the Qatar National Research Fund, started in 2006, has been supporting research for many years, right? 20 years almost. And that will continue, although with the QNRF coming under QRDI, there's a marked emphasis on the application of the research side, right? That is, how could we make the research that is done in the labs useful, useful beyond publishing papers, useful in everyday applications or in the industry or elsewhere, right? So that's how the research is going to, it's happening. And with the NDS3, the National Development Plan that's announced, there's going to be a lot more emphasis on research and innovation. And QRDI as an organization is going to drive that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. It's going to be my last question. I think I'm going to lean towards the entrepreneur types for this, and then I'll invite a closing from my panelists, which is just to bring in now, combining the digital agenda with the National Vision 2030. National Vision 2030 sets out the goals for Qatar's future. 2030 is coming up, and that's got elements of economic prosperity, equality, health and well-being, social inclusion. So speaking to perhaps Bassam and Khalid, with this impact-driven sense or this humbleness of appetite from an entrepreneurial perspective, is what do you see all of this digital future innovation, how do you see that fitting into helping Qatar realize its national vision, particularly vis-a-vis these positive impact, equality, well-being, prosperity elements?
Sure, I can start. Again, I can speak of a tangible example through the work we've done in Ibtikar and how it's really building up, and it was in collaboration with the Ministry of Communication and Technology, where we built actually an assistive innovation space, a lab to really equip people with different disabilities and really to be part of that movement and contribute to the upskilling of the population from that group. So really looking forward to all the technologies and initiatives. And again, I'm a really big fan of the synergies that we are seeing. And I think different initiatives coming together really to push the agenda forward. And again, it's going to be a progress. It's 2030, and then once we get there, it's going to be 2040, 2050, and so on and so forth. So let's keep pushing and let's make it happen. It takes all the different players to sit on the table, have this platform to talk and discuss and exchange ideas.
Okay, super. Thank you so much. Yeah, if you want to give any of the, welcome to that. My last and closing piece for my panelists. So we've had a fantastic discussion, which was left a lot unsaid and a lot undiscussed that we need to explore. What are those key digital niches? Is it transport? Is it energy? Is it healthcare? Is it infrastructure and so forth? And had a great discussion that just teased us with digital skills, teased us with there's this piece of talent gap that we need to solve. There needs to be more intersectoral collaboration, which is already live in action. So perhaps just to try, a lot left unsaid, I hope we gave you some juicy food for thought. And as a closing word, I'd invite each of my panelists to share one word or quality in how they see, how they temperature check the digital innovation landscape in Qatar right now. That might be hungry, it might be excitement, it might be drive. And just if you can try, because I'm getting the eyes that we have to finish, could try and keep it just tight to one word.
I'll start with then. Energetic.
Energetic.
You can feel the energy here, just moving around, walking. You can feel it. You can feel it, and this gives hope. Also, responding to your previous question on the future, digital future of the country.
I'll add promising.
Super. Energetic, promising.
Exciting.
Exciting.
In pursuit.
In
It's pursuit. It's really pursuing it. That's what I feel and captures it.
And I would say, I hope that it's humane.
Humane. In pursuit, humane. Super. Thank you much, everybody. There's the digital innovation profile of Qatar will be coming out in the next couple of weeks. Stay tuned. If you've got any further questions for the panelists, come find us. Happy networking. Thank you, everybody.